On tonight's roundtable, we discuss two films that have defined horror in a unique way.
What makes both of these films a classic, and how come one of them started riots to get banned?
Take a seat and relax before there's an accident. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. Welcome to an exciting roundtable of Everything Horror Podcast. We got some cool guests, and unfortunately, a couple people couldn't make it due to miscommunication or something else because of the holiday season, of course. And speaking of holidays, we got two treats for you tonight to talk about. We're going to be talking about the 1974 classic horror film, Black Christmas. And then up on the table, we got the 1984 classic Silent Night, Deadly Night. And with me, we got Stacy Cox from DK Mag, and we got Dano from Dano of the Dead. So please welcome them as we can also greet them. Yay! Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
My lovely
Thank
fiance.
you.
We also got my lovely fiance here,
Tessa Baker.
and she will hopefully not fall asleep making this. So, and me either. And I got to be up in like 7 hours. So let's do this. All right.
All right.
So guys, thank you so much for joining. But yeah, let's dive right in. Dan, I'm gonna put you on the spot first.
All right.
So if you had to describe Black Christmas to somebody, how would you put it in detail?
Yeah, you are going to put me on the spot because I haven't actually seen Black Christmas since it was on VHS when I was like 19 or 20. I've seen Silent Night, Deadly Night more recently, and I've seen, for some bizarre reason, I've seen the remake of Black Christmas recently. I mean, it's an excellent sort of Santa and holiday related slasher, kind of. From what I'm remembering, and again, I feel so ill prepared because I meant to go back and rewatch both of these today, and I didn't have the time to do it. So, but from what I remember, it plays really well on the whole thought there of you really don't know who it is that's in that Santa suit wandering around town.
Yeah, that's the remake, I believe, for Black Christmas. In the original, all you see is like a first person view of the maniac or the escape.
Silhouette.
Yeah, and then that's really about it. Otherwise, it. All right, I'll say it right now. People should know by now, I hope, that Black Christmas is more of they trick you into thinking this might be this person, or is it? So without going too much into detail, I mean, you did see the remake recently, Dan. That would be an interesting to talk about too. I haven't seen that in a couple years, so
it'd definitely be interesting to talk about because I'm not really a fan of remakes, and Black Christmas was not one to change my opinion on that either.
Yeah, I remember a little bit of that movie. Like I was telling Stacy, I was like, the only two things I remember about that movie is the weird shadow up in the attic, that scene, and then that one interesting kill with that piece of candy that I'm candy cane. Yes,
Yeah.
there it is. The candy cane kill. Other than that, I forget the entire movie because I must have not really cared too much for me. Yeah. So, but that's a pretty good description. Well, we'll save that for you too. But babe, if you had to tell somebody the original Black Christmas, how would you put it in words?
How would I describe it?
Yes. It was her first time seeing it too, so don't feel bad.
It's a 1970s horror flick about a silhouetted maniac that stalks sorority girls and says very vulgar stuff into a telephone.
Oh, yes. It's so interesting and amazing at the same time. All right, so let's get right into it. Stacy, so you saw the original Black Christmas, correct?
Yeah.
So, in your own opinion, what do you think of the film in general? Like what were some of your favorite stuff? What did you think was kind of corny? Or we'll start it off with you to see where it goes from there.
Well, I will definitely say that it is a big difference from 1974 to 2018. And I mean, every aspect of the movie, from, cinematography, special effects, practical effects, the acting, it's a big change. And in Black Christmas, I know what sticks out for me is it is the the kills and everything. For this era, for the 70s, a lot was done as far as special effects and violence and everything. A lot was done. I mean, even today, that's tenfold. But I was amazed at at the violence and the special effects. I was just amazed, and I actually watched it twice. Because hey, it was my first. I didn't even know there was a 1974 version. I thought it was just a 2006. And I did like that one much better, the 1974.
Yes, I agree.
Well, and it's always easier, I think, to like when they do a remake of something from the 70s or 80s. I feel like it's always easier to enjoy and relate to the original as opposed to the new one, because with all of the remakes, I mean, everything, you look at classics, especially from that era, and they've sanitized them down to market them. They may not be able to slap a PG-13 label on it, but they've definitely cut it down to where it appeals more to that PG-13 audience.
Yeah. I like how you worded that. Black Christmas, to me, when I first saw it a couple years ago myself, because I didn't realize there was an original myself, but I enjoyed it for a 1970s movie. Like Stacey said, like it was pretty well made, and like the kills were even believable because they were so, I guess, well put together, especially with like the first kill where the lady, suffocates with the plastic over her head, and then she gets placed on the rocking chair in the attic, and then you get who would be the next one? It would be the housekeeper, I believe, with the to the neck.
Mm-hmm. That sounds about right.
Yeah, and then third kill, I believe, would be the girl that was drunk off her ass that had to go and that got told to go to bed.
And she got stabbed with a glass unicorn head.
Yeah, glass unicorn head. Yep.
Yeah.
Which, let's take a moment to appreciate that, because it's very rare in cinema. Nice to see, because you really don't often get death by unicorn in much of anything you watch. I can think on one hand the number of times I've seen somebody die from unicorn related shenanigans in horror. And it's always great to take everybody's favorite princess pony and turn it into a murderous monster, even if it is just a sculpture of one.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think I don't remember the name of the movie. So Dan or Stacy or Tessa, if you can help me remember. But yeah, there was a murderous unicorn in a film, I believe, where
Cabin in the Woods.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Cabin in the Woods during the mythical monster clusterfuck.
Wow.
Yes,
that movie incorporated
so much.
It incorporated a lot of like weirdness.
Yeah, and then I feel like they. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say after watching that movie, I literally stared at the screen like, what did I just watch?
I think that's everybody's initial reaction when they see that movie.
Yeah.
And I also remember a murderous unicorn in one of the episodes of Supernatural a few years ago. I remember somebody having a nightmare or something and getting murdered by a unicorn in much the same fashion. So
wow, all these unicorn deaths. It's awesome.
It is. I mean, it is an underused mythical creature, really, because you always think of it as so shiny and sparkly and dressed in rainbows.
Creature, yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's like a My Little Pony on steroids, and then you actually have one that murders somebody, or more importantly, in this case, you have a sculpture of one used to murder, and it's always cool too when you see art incorporated in murder in a slasher movie.
Yep.
Because I mean, there's always so many great. People always have the most bizarre artwork and statuary in their home when it's going to get used by some crazed lunatic as a murder weapon.
Well,
right.
You also have to appreciate, the 70s and the 80s for, for things like that. Like nowadays, every now and again we'll get a good gem,
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, creativity and innovation in horror cinematography or horror cinema is just, it's dying out.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's a lot of regurgitation of old ideas, and at that, it's not even a true homage to those ideas and scenes, because in 1974, having an escaped lunatic going on a murder rampage and killing co-eds with anything, that's some stuff right there that got films banned. I mean, this is still, you're talking about when the original came out, this is still the era of exploitation cinema and the era of horror movies going from being seen as kind of a child's domain to getting shuffled off into porno theaters because respectable movie houses wouldn't carry them.
That's true. And Another thing that you gotta also appreciate too is, it's not like movies today too, where you know who it is, you know who it's gonna be, and instead it makes you feel like you're gonna know, but it also makes you feel like, it's just that, like, who can it be? Who can it be on top of, you want to know who it is, but you never get to find out. But at the same time, it's almost like Michael Myers in a way, where you want to know Michael Myers, but you don't.
Yeah, they did a lot more. Well, you're talking about, this is the generation of filmmakers that came up in the 60s and 70s that grew up watching both the Universal monster movies and works by people like Alfred Hitchcock. So they were sitting there and blending these elements from, they're blending stuff from Hitchcock and early Roger Corman, and they're using these elements of story and suspense and mystery to keep an audience on their toes. And you don't have a lot of filmmakers that really, not in the mainstream, you don't have a lot of filmmakers, really, it seems, that really put that much attention to detail and attention to story on the film anymore.
Agreed. Black Christmas. It's one of those things where it's just like, you just gotta appreciate everything about it. I mean, it is made in Canada, and it did have 2 award wins for the best performance by a lead actress and the best sound editing for the Canadian Film Awards. It did get nominated. Yep, it did get nominated for the best horror film and the best motion picture for Edgar Allan Poe Award, but for the best,
Allan Poe.
yeah, thank you. His name, I swear. And look who decided to hop in. Say hello, Ken.
Hello, Ken.
Yeah. Well, welcome aboard, buddy. I'm kind of glad. Like, it seems like your issues seem to be resolved. I hope.
No, still have the same issue. And today was a major upgrade for all WordPress. Everyone who has WordPress has a major upgrade. So if you go to our website, it has no pictures. So I'm trying to resolve that problem too.
Oh God.
And here's where I chime in and say, yet another reason why I'm switching everything over to Wix from WordPress. because WordPress has just, it seems like every time I've tried to do anything in the last 6 months with WordPress, it's been just a colossal pain.
Yeah, and you should see the new changes. Stacy and I, everybody has to really sit down. It's a lot. Everything's changed. Everything.
Yeah, I actually made the. I'm not going to say a mistake. I was trying to get an article up for some friends of mine over at the Superficial Gallery, and trying to set up a Christmas article ahead of the holiday. And I'm sitting there and I'm typing it, and I finally, after an hour, got fed up and just said, "Okay, forget it. I'll come back to it next week," because we've got a while still before Christmas, because it's just the changes going on that platform. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be great updates, but damn.
Well, look at what YouTube doing. Oh God. So where was I?
You're talking about Black Christmas and winning awards, which is something else you don't see a whole lot of anymore for horror movies.
No.
Well, hell, I mean, you didn't see it that often for horror movies to begin with, but
yeah, exactly. But I mean, for 2 awards out of the 4 awards, though, that's pretty impressive, though, I have to say.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So back to the kills. Was there another kill after the unicorn? I'm trying to remember, because we don't actually see.
We don't see Phil get killed. We see her get pulled into a room. pulled into the room, but
Yeah.
we don't see what happens to her.
Yeah, we just wait to find out that she's on the bed with
Barb.
With Barb. Yeah, that's it. And then he's behind the door, peeking through the door crack, and saying something. But yeah, I think that was mainly.
Agnes, it's Billy.
Yeah.
Don't tell them what we've done.
Yeah.
Like that.
Like, I guess. Oh, I know what I need to throw in my 2 cents for. We need to feel bad for the cop, the one that got treated like shit, especially with the quote unquote telephone number that
Nash
Daddy got.
Yeah, it was Nash.
Oh man, that poor cop. But
yet another thing you don't hear that often.
Fellatio.
Oh man. So Ken, would you like to say anything about your love or hatred for Black Christmas for the 1974?
The 1974 one. Well, I've 1974 one. I seen the reboot, and of course, once again, you can't compare the reboot to the original.
I agree. I haven't seen it in years, but Dan recently watched it, so it's kind of good because I was hoping somebody at least saw it, so we could at least compare between the classic and the remake. But yeah, go on, Ken, if you have anything.
But with the reboot, for someone, this is like one of the few movies that I've seen the reboot before or vaguely remember because I know I've seen the first one. As a little kid, I've seen so many horror movies. I lost count which one is which. But the reboot just seems so generic. Oh God, the same shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like
it's
like
Friday the
13th, Christmas time.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really anything new for the genre. That's for sure.
No,
the thing with the remake is it tries so hard with the violence and the special effects. These movies today, when it's just so funny because when they try so hard with the shock, values and everything, and you're like, oh, that would have been so great if it wasn't so much. What is it, Kim? CGI, all that stuff they use in these movies today.
Yeah. I mean, when we gotta use digital blood, you gotta use it good. Just sprinkle it.
Yeah.
Don't.
And then you got the movies that are just like super cheesy, and we were actually talking about this in the podcast about how sometimes the blood just literally looks like ketchup.
Yeah, I think my favorite. I think my favorite thing that I've noticed in recent years is the overuse of CGI blood as opposed to just making some fake blood. I mean, I can go up to Walmart or any store, any grocery store, and I can make you up a pint of fake blood for $5. And I know a lot of smaller productions, they got small to next to no budgets, but it's one of those things. And again, it's what separates an original from the 70s from a remake in the 2000s, because they didn't have the level of CGI and special effects. And even if they had, they wouldn't have had the budget to use them back then. So they had to rely on cinematography, they had to rely on lighting, and they had to rely on what they could create with those two. So you've got scenes where you might see some fake blood, it may just be ketchup mixed with some barbecue sauce sprayed across the room, but it works so much better because, they also picked it up at this weird kind of ominous angle, and they did the lighting in such a way that the color just assaults you as it jumps out across the screen, and you never see that anymore. It's like they doubled down on the violence to clear up their inability or their unwillingness to really take a chance with some of these angles and shots that they could be making.
And
Yeah.
that brings me to another another guest that we had on our podcast. Her name is Shiva Rodriguez, and she does special effects for indie horror films. And one of the things that's funny that she said was that when she gets hired to do film, there's no budget for special effects, and she is like, she's wondering, okay, what do you expect me to do for gore if you're not paying me to buy the supplies to make a prosthetic or make blood? That should be the first thing on a budget.
Yeah, and if you're planning on making something that is going to encompass elements of gore and violence that you're actually going to put on screen, then you've got to set aside a budget. If you're going to Hitchcock this, if you're going to cut away and get, a silhouette shot of somebody as they're being murdered, or, if you're shooting it in black and white, so you can literally just take some brake fluid or some chocolate syrup and throw it at a wall and have it look good, that's one thing. But I mean, now if you're making a horror movie and you're not going to use some sort of cinematic style that cuts away and leaves the violence and gore to the audience's imagination, you've got to factor in for that.
It's also, speaking of blood, it's almost, I don't want to say as bad, but, we got to also appreciate another film, which I'm going off topic for this, but speaking of blood, it just reminds me of this one particular scene, which I'm pretty sure it's Suspiria, or it's either Suspiria or Infernal, where we have this person that is being hung by a rope, but you see the pink blood from their mouth. Like, you can definitely tell it's fake, but I mean, like,
Suspiria, I believe.
Yeah. Where was I going with this now? Like, the blood just looks fake, and it. So can you take it seriously? Like, I mean, I guess you can't because it's pink, but I mean, hey, I guess it's something rather than CGI. So
yeah, well, and I mean, there's always that, there's always that concession you got to make of how much reality is the audience expected to ignore in order to enjoy a film, because there's always got to be that suspension of disbelief that accompanies a movie, because it's entertainment first and foremost. And you're not going to enjoy it if you're sitting there picking apart literally every single choice that they made. But
right.
At the same time, you've got to make decisions here and there as to what you want to get right and what you can skimp on.
Yeah, or at least accept the fact of what they did, just to kind of, they probably had to budget their time anyway. Plus, I mean, I guess maybe that was the only way back then too, which was pink blood. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was the light in, for all I know. I mean, who knows? You just know, though, it's like pink blood. But I think we're getting sidetracked. But
yeah, we guys kind of say, but I like Dan's idea. Yeah, I would like to work on whatever movie he's making, because he had barbecue sauce, chocolate, ketchup. I don't know if it's a barbecue or making a horror movie.
Hey, I'm always thinking when I see these movies, it's like, okay, how can we George Romero this? Because literally every time you see zombies in the original Night of the Living Dead eating intestines or fingers or ribs, It's because a local business donated them some actual food to use in this. And so they were chowing down, and you've always got to think about feeding your cast and crew as well as making the movie. And I mean, it works. You can do both at the same time if you're willing to work with certain ideas.
That is true.
I think you guys pretty much covered everything that I would have thought of anyways. I mean, kind of had me thinking that I knew who the killer was going to be, and it like totally like ended up not being who I thought it was.
Okay, so you can elaborate more with that. So what did the movie do to make you think it was this one specific person? But
well, I thought it was Peter. I thought it was Peter, like, because I was just watching his behavior, how he was very angry with, oh God, what was her name? His girlfriend, because she was pregnant and she was talking about getting rid of the baby, like aborting the baby. And she was being very cruel about it and very selfish. And I just, I was like, well, I was thinking as the movie was going on, I was like, well, there's a motive right there. You lose your shit because your girlfriend is threatening to abort your baby, and there you go, psycho switch flipped, so there's a motive. And then I was just watching it and going through, and like the silhouette part where the killer's standing over Barb's bed with the sharp unicorn glass head thing, getting ready to stab her. You can see like a little bit of like green sweater thing there. So, and Peter was wearing a green sweater. So again, I thought it was Peter, and I'm just kind of like, and then when it got towards the end and something happened totally unexpected and it didn't turn out to be Peter, I was just kind of like,
well, see, that's the thing that we don't really see too much these days, is actually fooling the audience.
Yeah,
well, fooling the audience, really. Like, there's a couple films that I've seen recently that, yes, have fooled the shit out of me. Like 3, Eye for an Eye. That completely blew my brain for about 48 hours, and oh boy, poor Ken. And, it was just like, like, holy crap. With this one, though, there was a couple scenes where Stacy and Dan, I mean, we could probably elaborate more with this, is the part where when the detectives come into the house and like search everywhere, they forgot one place to look, and that was the attic.
You know what?
Oh yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is, now this goes into the question of, okay, so if Black Christmas were to be made today, would it actually work, or would the film make the audience feel dumb? If you get what I'm trying to get at, because like, we would be yelling at the people going, "You idiots! You need to check the attic, the attic."
Yeah.
It's like common sense. You find 2 bodies in the house, you should search. Well, technically 3 bodies. You find 3 bodies in the house, you should technically search the house from bottom to top or top to bottom, every single floor, to make sure that there is no more bodies.
Right.
Actually, the fact that, this concept has been done for so long, I think that today Black Christmas would not work. Like, after seeing these movies and just, like, today it would be a cliche. It's like that cliche, like, when the victim gets the upper hand on the killer and you shoot him once. It's like, no, shoot him like 10 times. You got to make sure he's dead. Like, back in the
Double
70s,
tap.
that worked.
Get back up.
That passed back in the 70s. Today, we're like, you dummy. You got to kill him, like, you got to, stab him 50 times. You got to shoot him 10 times. That's why it wouldn't work today.
Dan, what are your thoughts on that? The whole
I
back then
mean,
now.
I'm with Stacy 100%. It is such an overused. It's such an overused trope as it is just in horror in general. There hasn't really been anything groundbreaking or unique with the slasher film in 25 years. And it all really at some point starts feeling like rehashing of old ideas, Oh, I saw him do this in Friday the 13th part 8. I remember something like this in one of the one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Oh, that's exactly how Michael Myers gets you. It's just it becomes at some point it just becomes commonplace within these movies that you can't actually take them seriously.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Ken, what are your thoughts on the whole if Black Christmas were made today?
What here we're talking about the antagonist never going down. That would work for video game, but that doesn't work anymore for movies.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess video games could work both ways if done properly, but yeah, no, I mean, I really do agree with everything that was said, though, that Black Christmas would definitely fail to be made if it was made today. And speaking of Black Christmas, so whoever remembered the remake better than me, and that can remember the original as well as the remake, I'll let you guys take the mic for a minute to explain the horrible difference, or what you could even say of what they really tried to rely on with the remake, I guess. So yeah, I mean, Dan, you said you recently saw it, so I'll let
Yeah,
you have this one.
and what I feel like I remember, and again, I didn't really. It wasn't really one that stood out to me as being worth watching over and over again. But it felt like they spent so much more time focusing on just the cheap kind of kills and jump scares and things like that, as opposed to actually taking the time to sit down and really make any sort of original cinematic product here. I mean, it felt like I mean, the best way to put it is they sanitized down the original so that it would pass for a PG-13 audience. I mean, I've seen it played on cable channels, late in the afternoon and evenings, because they can legitimately edit everything out of it that they need to with censorship bars and bleeped out words in order to play it on TBS if they want to. And I think that's the real downfall of it, is that where you have something that in its original form you wouldn't be able to watch properly on a cable network, now you can take this original and almost run it as a rain delay. I don't even know if they still do rain delay movies for baseball games and stuff, but you could almost run it like that.
You were mentioning too earlier that you didn't know who was underneath the Santa outfit. So you remember like how that character really kind of played out at all? I'm trying to think of the words right now to really touch it, but like if I remember right, the Santa Claus guy was mainly like the maniac, like the original, but they took it
Yeah.
to a step further I think.
Yeah. What I vaguely remember, and again, it's been a little while even since I've watched this. But what I remember from this is he felt more like have you ever seen the very first episode of Tales from the Crypt?
Yeah.
The Santa Claus axe murderer that comes into the house. He felt very much like a watered down version of that.
But they relied on the gore. They tried to let the gore talk, though.
Well, yeah, I think that's and not even the gore really is just the act of violence itself, because there's a huge difference between relying on blood and guts and relying on some sort of violent act to carry these movies through. You know, a lot of the well, I mean, I call them torture porn, like Hostel or Serbian film, things like that. They're more focused on the actual act of violence itself, rather than the fear that act might cause.
Well, as far as the remake goes, and this is like I said, I feel like it really tried too hard. Again, just in this day and age, or in this era, in this day and age, again, back to the violence and everything. I think what they're doing now is they're just trying too hard, and like the kills are just like, I mean, it's just so like, OMG, are you serious? You know, as opposed to the original, the kills are much better because again, it's not all that CGI. And what is the other term for it? Ken, are you there? You use it. It's not CGI. It's something else.
Practical effects.
Is it practical effects?
Yeah.
Okay. Practical effects. Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, you can hear everybody.
Yay!
Struggle there.
Black Christmas is just what it is. I mean, it's a great 1970 film with practical effects. One of those films where I wouldn't really know for sure if it was like one of the first type of home invasion thing. We even want to call it a home invasion, but I want to say we would want to, because you're technically talking about a killer inside of a house, which apparently this escape maniac in Black Christmas went back to the sorority house because that used to be his house before, I guess it was a sorority house or whatever. So is it really a home invasion, or is it really him coming home? It's just kind of one of those films where you're going, well, kind of like what Tessa said, like this movie got me up to the point where I think I might know the killer, but wait a minute, now I'm uncertain. But they did it. I find that they did it so well, even though that one part, well, not even the part, but in general, they search everywhere except for the attic. And what drives me crazy too about this is that if you, kind of like near the end of the movie, when you see what's her face that got killed first in the plastic bag or whatever it was, plastic sheet, and in the rocking chair, she was put over by the window. So if you go outside the house and look up to the window, you could probably see her. So you're maybe thinking to yourself, this looks weird. Maybe I should figure out how to get up there or go to the attic. Hello?
See, and that whole thing right there is where with slasher movies I have such a hard time going back to the suspension of disbelief, because I mean, just from And I worked in law enforcement for almost 13 years. I grew up in it, and the notion that anybody is going to walk into a house and see one or more dead bodies and not immediately walk out just boggles my mind. And you know, you're talking about a guy that if I walked into my living room, body laying there, if I'm not actually carrying when I see this, and even if I am, chances are still good I'm going back outside where there are witnesses because I'm not going in for whatever the hell is in there.
Mhm.
And I can't. I've never been able to wrap my mind around, you know, gruesome dismembered body in the living room. Oh, let's walk upstairs and see what we can find. I can't. I can't.
But what gets me with these slasher films, and I think you're right, Paul. Uh, this movie, Black Christmas, is a home invasion when you come to think of it. Yeah, because he actually breaks into the home, and uh, well, people have to survive. Uh, the killer. How does the killer manage to find the time to hide all the bodies in elaborate positions, and when somebody's going to run out the door, it just falls down from the ceiling on a hook? And how does he have the time to do that? He's like doing MacGyver move or some shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be well. He's got to be both insanely quick and insanely strong. Not to mention, just be absolutely the lightest on his feet of anybody ever in order to pull this off. Because he's got to be doing this at lightning pace, especially when, you know, you walk through the door the first time and there's nothing, and then you walk back through and then they come falling out of the raft.
To me, Black Christmas is always going to be a classic to mine, just because one, it's all practical effects. It's 1970s where, you know, they probably had, for Canada, I mean, they probably had to have a pretty decent budget. I mean, maybe not that much. I mean, I don't even know if we even have an idea of what their budget really was, but I'm just going to take a quick look. But in my own opinion, though, with the practical effects of all the kills, especially the unicorn kill, especially the plastic bag and the hook, you know, it's just nice to see well done practical effects rather than focus on relying on CGI per se, like the remake, I believe, definitely did. The only thing that the only other thing that I like about it too is that you don't really know who the killer is. It's that big mystery that we don't get anymore, because all the films nowadays go, oh, here's the mystery killer. Oh, here's a little bit of backstory about the killer. Oh shit, here's the killer. Now you know, the end.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
and to answer your question, I just pulled it up on IMDb, and it had an estimated budget of $620,000.
That's a lot of money for
that
that
is.
time.
That's a hell of a lot of money in
That is.
1974.
Wow.
And to
Wow.
put that into perspective, Christmas Evil, which was made in 1980, had a budget of 720,000.
Yep.
And it's if you've ever seen that one, which I'm going to go ahead and shoot myself in the foot now, because we've been sitting here gearing up for Silent Night, Deadly Night. And as I'm sitting here looking through stuff, I realize that as we're getting ready for Silent Night, Deadly Night, I'm sitting here thinking Christmas Evil all the way through. So that's where I am at this point.
Damn. I have yet to see that, unfortunately, but
it's roughly the same premise. And it came out 4 years before. It's roughly the same premise. Guy has a mental break after being abused, and goes on a murder spree dressed as Santa.
I believe it's on Amazon Prime right now, so I'll definitely have to watch. So for Silent Night, Deadly Night, well, we got a boy named Billy who witnessed his own parents get murdered by a man dressed as Santa Claus. And on top of that, he was one of the survivors, just like his baby brother, Ricky, from that horrible incident. And then from there, Billy was raised in an orphanage, which makes me wonder where Ricky was at the time, in a way, because we didn't really see a baby in the orphanage. So I'm wondering if he was able to get put somewhere until at least he got a little bit older. Because at the end of the movie, spoiler, but you probably should have seen this already, but Ricky has grown up a little bit. And, yeah, you know, he probably maybe 10 or so years old. I mean, it's got to be around 10 years old, if I had to guess. So, and yeah, I mean, we'll get into the ending too, probably. But anyway, yeah, so Billy is brought into the orphanage where he is abused again by Mother Superior. And Mother Superior had this, how does she word it? Her techniques, I guess, where she's going to break the curse over Billy, that he will no longer be afraid of Santa Claus. And unfortunately, Stacey, that doesn't work too well, does it?
No, it doesn't. But I vaguely remember Silent Night, Deadly Night. I watched it years ago. So, yeah.
That was great.
Ken.
Sorry.
Other than an insane amount of similarities between Christmas Evil, I'm kind of out here because I don't remember when I watched this. So I think I legitimately need to hand in my horror card for the night because I've completely confused two separate films for one another.
Uh-oh.
Basically, that's a template for all these Christmas films because we could even jump forward to Good Tidings, which released a couple of years back. And guess who the antagonists are? Escape lunatics dressed up as Santa. I was like, is that the only thing that Santa is supposed to be? An escape guy?
Well, and you know, now that you're saying that, I'm trying to think of a way to refute that. And in my head, the first thing I think of is A Christmas Horror Story from a few years ago, because there's a scene of Santa fighting zombie elves and Krampus, but it legitimately turns out, and I'm sorry, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen this, but it legitimately turns out that this is a mall Santa who had a mental break and went on a killing spree in the mall, thinking he was dispatching zombie elves. So yeah, apparently the only way that Santa Claus as a crazed killer works is if he's a lunatic.
Just to add in my 2 cents before one of you guys take over for a minute too, because it would be interesting to hear a little bit more about Christmas Evil too. Next week, if everybody is available too, again, that's when the second roundtable is going on, where the title that you just mentioned, Dan, A Christmas Horror Story, will be talked about. So you're more than welcome to come back too, Dan, on that, since you do know that one, it seems, which is good. And then the other one we got is Krampus, but the 2015 one from Michael, I might pronounce his last name wrong, but Daltrey or something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to be talking about those two hopefully next week if everybody's still available for that. So,
I'll be happy to join back in because monster movies, I'm down. Slasher movies, it's more hit or miss as to what I've seen and what I haven't.
Right. Well,
To touch up on what you were mentioning, Paul, about the sister, that too, uh, maybe that would have played out in that time of the 70s where civil rights and all these important little nuances when you're taking care of orphans or in the hospital. But it just watching it now, it seems so over the top, especially when the little kid he was looking through the peephole and the sister she barged in and started whipping the sister because she was having sex. I mean, come on, this woman seems repressed in a way or something.
Isn't that the overall popular image though of priests and nuns in cinema, is that they're all sexually sadistic and repressed?
Art imitates life.
I mean, clearly. Oh, all the reasons I'm going to hell, and I don't think that one's even going to make the list.
hey, I'll meet you there, buddy. I'll meet you there.
But it's true. It's true. It seems too over the top, and I think if they were to make this remake, they'll keep that same element, but they will have the sister commit adultery with the child or something tabooish. But for her to be whipping him and tying him up to the bed, I mean, that builds up the antagonist, sure, but it just seems too over the top.
That's why it's going to be a lesbian nun, and that's going to be the twist now. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be bad. No, so, okay, so I'll try to refresh everybody's mind too, with Silent Night, Deadly Night, is once after Mother Superior beats Billy with the belt and stuff a couple times and ties him up to the bed because he's having a nightmare, and she thinks that's like the best way to do it, and tells the other sister to leave him alone, and to get out of the bedroom. But after that, Mother Superior had this whole thing down where with all the abuse that she did upon Billy, it's somehow gonna break him to appreciate Santa Claus again, because there's a scene where they're all opening gifts, and Billy is fine. But as soon as you play Santa Claus into the picture, that's it. Game over for Billy. And it gets even worse, even down 10 years, because once 10 years go by, he gets a job at a toy store. Once again, bad idea. Why? Because the store clerk or owner decides that, since the other Santa Claus fell through, I think it would be a great idea to have Billy dress up as Santa Claus.
Because nothing could go wrong there.
No.
Nothing whatsoever.
Nothing can go wrong at all. Babe, what happened to Billy when he gets all dressed up in the Santa suit at the store?
Starts having flashbacks about what happened to his parents. You see him struggling to fight to not lose it, and then he gets completely pushed over the edge when a girl that he is seen kissing on another man, and the guy forcing himself on her and exposing her, and that's all it took. And then there you go. Murderous rampage.
Yep. That's right.
Oh, and don't forget the how many bottles of Irish whiskey they were drinking. I think that attributed to his flip out too.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a true rampage until you got a little whiskey in you.
Yeah,
exactly. What?
Well, what would the store clerk line? It's finally over. Let's get drunk or something. Like, okay. And then he pops out the whiskey and start drinking with everybody. It's just like, oh, geez. See, I think that's what happened too, because I don't think Billy was ever used to alcohol. So at this point in time, was he a lightweight too? I mean, oh man, that alcohol could have played in the, the whole mental breakdown as well. Because as Tessa was saying too, leading up to his mental breakdown of the guy getting all over the girl that he liked. But this is where I find interesting too, and that is the first kill of the film that we get is the other coworker that is on top of the girl trying to get his way, and Billy chokes him, I believe with one hand too, with Christmas lights. And he's lifting him off the ground as well. And then, just like typical anything, blood going everywhere. He's somehow superhuman or something because he's choking him with one hand. And then he dropped him down to the ground. And then we get our second kill, really, which is a box cutter knife to the girl. And then that's when pretty much all hell goes loose, too, which I believe that's the time where the store owner tried to come in. He's looking for Billy, I believe, or even both of his workers, really. And then what happened to him? He gets it right. What does he get? I think it was right before the axe because it was the girl that got the axe. I think.
No, the girl, the in the store. The girl didn't get the axe. She got the bow. She got the bow.
I know, but I mean that's when Billy gets the axe, though. What I think was when he went after her. I'm trying to remember the store clerk now.
Like you said, Andy got choked with the Christmas lights.
Yeah.
The girl.
Box cutter.
Pamela got the box cutter, and then the store clerk guy,
Mandy.
Mr. Sims, gets the back end of a hammer.
That's what it was. Yeah, with the hammer.
Yeah, back end of the hammer where you use the end to pull the nails out.
Yep.
Yep, he got that end.
Okay. Yeah.
Then Colonel Mustard caught the candlestick in the library, and I'm
I love that game.
It's
so good.
It's been like 30 seconds since I talked. I just had to make sure I was still connected. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just kidding around. No, and I mean it's always one of those, like there's only so much I feel like you can do with a lunatic in a Santa costume on Christmas.
Oh yeah.
And I mean each of these movies has got some genuinely unique kills. They've got some interesting plot points and character developments. But I mean, they do kind of start to blend together. And it was a big thing in the 70s and especially in the early 80s because I'm sitting here looking up Christmas slasher movies. And there's dozens of them, and most of them are made between like 78 and 85.
Right.
Mm.
I mean, but then again, before I forget too, is the final kill in the store that we get is what Tessa was saying was a bow and arrow, because of the fact, because of the fact that Billy couldn't use the axe because she tricked him into hitting some boxes. She put them over, tried using the fire axe to get out of the door or the store on the door, and then Billy ended up shooting her in the chest with the bow and arrow, and then that's how he managed to get out of the store. But we already know where this is going too, because he wants the revenge on Mother Superior.
Well, yeah, I mean it's not a great revenge story until he goes and actually gets revenge instead of just, slaughtering a bunch of innocent people.
Yeah, because Mother Superior had to drill it into his head that all naughty people need to be punished and punishment is good and necessary.
See, and only half of that rings true. Like I get the whole thing of a nun imparting that into a child. I don't understand why the nun is so fixated on making sure he believes in Santa too.
Right.
Well, this should actually be a perfect time for this. But Silent Night, Deadly Night is known for that film that everybody hated, and they tried to get it banned. There
Yeah.
was one person, I don't recall the whole entire statement that they wrote, but I definitely remember this one specific line that they said, and it was the beginning, and it read, "I'd rather wick road tar than watch Silent Night, Deadly Night."
It's not that bad.
No,
It's not
it's
that
really
bad.
not. And
But it's just one of those things is people, and we still see it today with movies too. There's so much you can't touch any topic that anybody finds sacred without getting those kind of protests.
yeah, that actually brings up to the next one that I think, just because you just said that word, sacred. So this is another person's complaint from somebody from all the way in New York, and
Wasn't me. Wasn't me.
And this guy said the film portends something extremely violent, something terroristic about Christmas. It's an intrusion against something we hold sacred. So because you said sacred, I just had to say that one. And
Yeah.
the last one that I'm gonna mention is what I find it hilarious, because this person, what all I'm gonna say is, was a school principal, but this guy is actually from the state that I'm even city that I'm in, and this guy who was the school principal says it's an invasion of children's dreams and fantasies. It's a form of child abuse.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I remember when Silent Night, Deadly Night came out. My mom, she was adamant not to watch it because it is against Christmas and the Christmas spirit. How could they? It's anti this, anti that. But thankfully, my sister snuck me in, and I saw the movie, and I do remember watching the movie. And of course, as a young kid, the thing that's gonna stick out is not the kill scenes; is the nudity.
Right? I mean, I would be lying if I said that I never watched a horror movie just because of the nude scenes in it. Because I think any 13, 14-year-old boy that realizes, oh, wait a second, they're not just going to show people getting hacked up; they're going to show people doing it. All right, and I mean, I think in some way, every kid gets a little excited about that. Every teenager gets a little excited about that when they realize they're going to see that in a horror movie too. And I think that's another thing. It's not so much the violence that terrifies people about letting their kids watch it. It's the sex that is in the horror movies that really offends them. Because we are the most squeamish culture when it comes to sex.
Yes, that is true. And it's so weird though too, because I know some countries have to censor the sex, but they can. This is what I find. Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to get at is it's really interesting to see what some countries can do more than maybe us per se, because okay, so I was just saying, most other countries have to censor sex, but they can go full blown fucking gore, shit that the US won't do. But then there's the countries that go, oh, you got gore in it, we got to cut that out. And
well, I mean, look at Monty Python. That came out at the same time as Black Christmas, And you're talking about a television show that, it was absurd humor, and there was a sexual element to it. I mean, you can watch Monty Python on Netflix right now, and there's full frontal nudity in it. Something that you will still never see on television in the US.
No.
But what you won't get in the UK is a lot of blood, gore, and violence. And everybody is so different on the topic. But here, I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, hell, I remember being so shocked when the show Bones originally started playing several years ago, because I was watching an episode of it, and they're showing this decomposed corpse hanging in a tree. And I mean, they did really good work on this. I'm like, you're actually showing this on TV. But if Bones slipped a tit out to feed a child, you'd censor that shit, and there'd be protests all over the country because you showed that on TV. And I mean, that's a bit of a stretch, but not much. And I'm still worked up on the censorship issue. I just wrote a thing about Tumblr's recent censorship at the start of the week. And so censorship in any form is evil, and I hate it. Anyway.
No, I agree.
Let me hijack the podcast for a minute so I can pontificate about my own feelings and thoughts about this.
Go right ahead.
But no, I mean, there's definitely that issue, and I don't think even with those protests, even with people that get offended when you take a beloved childhood character and add something dark and evil and twisted to them, they're okay with a certain degree of violence and foul language and other issues. They're okay with it as long as everybody keeps their clothes on.
Or they can only show so much.
Yeah. Well, and I say foul language, but I grew up watching movies like Goonies and all the Monster Squad, and
Yes.
you have 12-year-old kids saying shit, damn, hell, and a number of other words that now if you had a child say that in a remake of one of these, there would be special interest groups and parents protesting and picketing because it's child abuse, and it's inappropriate that you're going to let a child say these words or be around these words. I love watching the movies. I don't love having to deal with the people that don't like them.
That's going to be always an issue.
What, the censorship?
Yeah, I mean, I think the censorship, I think he's right. It's always going to be an issue because, there's no self-censorship that anybody's really, that by and large anybody's really willing to take on, which is the issue. If you sit down and you censor this for yourself and you decide, yeah, I don't like this, I'm not going to watch it, and I'm not going to let my kid watch it, that's one thing. But I think the larger problem is that you're not going to get that. It's all going to be people hearing that, oh yeah, there's supposed to be this or that in a movie, and so they immediately get outraged and start picketing, just like they do on Facebook. They don't even read the article that somebody posts. They just see the title, and it immediately inflames them, and they create their own narrative to go with it.
Well, sometimes titles can be a little, I guess I would say, off-putting. Like, you read it and go, what? And then the article doesn't really have anything to do with what the title really implies. It's one of those. Oh, yeah.
They make it provocative. That way they'll get the clicks.
Yeah.
And it's always that issue with anything, especially when it comes to something holiday related or something that, is going to have religious overtones. It's things that people feel are beyond reproach, and because they feel that it's untouchable, that it's unassailable, they don't feel like people that disagree with them should be allowed the chance to air their thoughts on the matter.
Well, that's actually a good segue, probably, to put in the next couple. Well, there's one specific scene, I should say, in Silent Night, Deadly Night, and I'm not talking about where the bullies try to take the snow sleds away from the good kids, and even though one of the bullies gets his head chopped off coming down the hill. No, I'm not talking about that scene. I'm talking. It was the girl that was supposedly watching the little girl or the daughter or whatever, or not daughter, sister or whatever, like the babysitter. The babysitter has the kid over trying to do quote unquote homework, but instead it's one of those weird things where it's like, oh well, we're just doing homework, but really we're just trying to get rough sex going on or whatever on a pool table. But then out of nowhere, she's just like, "Oh, the cat's gotta come inside," and after seeing this scene again, it reminds me of a video game. So it's like the lady realizes the cat needs to come inside because I guess he like makes a noise on the door or whatever when he wants to come in. When she gets up and goes to the front door and opens it, she's topless. And the only thing that this part reminds me of now, after playing it, is the game Until Dawn, where Mike and Ashley are trying to get it on in the cabin, and then you get Ashley that opens the door and starts yelling outside because she thinks the other friends are trying to like ruin their quote unquote good time. And one of the famous lines Ashley says is something about along the lines of, "That's right, me and Mike are gonna have sex, hardcore sex." And it's just like, depending on your choices, I mean, she can either be fully dressed still, or you can at least get her to show her panties and bras. But you got to think, it's almost like the same thing in that one particular scene.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's going back to common tropes in all the slasher movies, it's one of those. It's pretty well traveled at this point. They're on the cusp of getting it on. A noise draws one or both of them away. They think it's a friend screwing with them, so they have a little bit of uninspired monologue, and then go back to what they're about to do, only to be surprised when the killer slices one or both of them up. I mean, it's and I mean it's entertaining sometimes too, and it's good. And in the 70s and 80s, it's one of those things that we hadn't seen a whole lot. We hadn't experienced that on film and in fiction a whole lot. And so it was more, I think it was more entertaining back then, as opposed to now. It just kind of seems cheap and cliched and just a little bit campy and funny now, as opposed to the more realistic feel that it had back then.
But leading up to the scene that I'm trying to think of, that is probably another reason why Silent Night, Deadly Night falls under the categories of almost banned, is when Billy is done placing the girl upon the deer antlers and impales her, and then throws the guy out the window. But after all that has happened, then you get the little girl that woke up and she sees Billy, or should I say, in her mind or eyes, Santa Claus. And then we see Billy turn toward the little girl. And at this point in time, you can tell Billy is ready to punish even the little girl because he's bringing out the box cutter that he used on the lady back in the store on the second kill. And so people right there are probably already saying this is child abuse right here because he's pulling out a box cutter on this little girl. But, you know, because the little girl was not bad, and she had to say it multiple times because of Billy trying to pretty much say, are you sure you've been good throughout this entire time? And, you know, it's that scene where you just go, man, is this a little bit too much? Or is it not, because it's at least showing Billy knows when to not hurt somebody? The only thing is that Billy hands her the bloody box cutter.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean that's just these movies were all a perfect storm for that kind of
Protest.
outrageous protest. Yeah, because I mean, so many different taboo topics that are being covered and handled in the form of a horror film, and yeah, I mean, I see where the protest came from, but at the same and I guess my views on it are always going to be a little more skewed because I'm a horror fan. You know, I'm not one of these people that doesn't find entertainment in it.
I as much as I hate bringing it up sometimes, but you know, you gotta. It's because of religion. If you don't put in religion in a film, it's fine. You know, like it's like, oh, okay, whatever. This is entertainment. But as soon as you put in a religion into the play, like Christianity, it's you know, it's like the end of the world. This is where everybody thinks this is the devil's work. You know, they go all the way out to try to ban it, like Silent Night, Deadly Night, which they couldn't ban it, which I tried to look up to see anything about that, but I couldn't find anything. So all I just know is that we're lucky that it did not get banned. But
yeah, see now, and the only reason I'm as familiar with that is because I just got done watching a documentary about Monty Python recently,
right.
and the life of Brian took a hell of a beating from protesters like that. And I believe it was either Black Christmas or Silent Night, Deadly Night that it was coming out. And now that I'm thinking about it, it was Silent Night, Deadly Night was coming out around the same time as the life of Brian, and they were comparing the protests over both as well. I mean, I don't know that you're really sparing anybody when you create a huge bloody crime scene and then hand a child the murder weapon and leave, because I mean, realistically, that's less of oh, I'm sparing your life because you're such a good child, and more of I'm sparing your life because now there's going to be some question as to whether or not I actually committed these murders.
Exactly. All right.
So yeah.
Yeah. So the final thing that I want to talk about for sure, which is definitely another probably hot spot scene for the angry protesters about this film, and that is near the end, where Billy finally gets to Mother Superior. And that is when he gets inside the orphanage, and he uses the little kid actually to bring him inside while hiding the axe. And at this point in time, like I was mentioned earlier, 10 years later, Billy's brother is finally kind of grown up. So, and it amazes me too that Ricky can recognize his own brother too, especially when he was just a baby when they last kind of seen each other, as far as I'm aware of. But
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to put the nail in the coffin is, especially because of the people protesting, is you really think Billy is going to take out Mother Superior, but he gets shot twice. And I think that whole entire scene kills it for the protesters because Billy's dressed up as Santa Claus. Billy got into the orphanage full of kids, and he's about to kill Mother Superior, who is a nun. And so, yeah. So Dan, I'll let you free roam on this one. So what do you think of this?
I want to say that ought to be enough to shut up the protesters, but at the same time, it just to me it feels like it would add more fuel to their fire because now you've got the visual of Santa Claus being gunned down in front of a bunch of innocent orphan children, and yeah, it just
it's gonna plant that image in their mind now.
yeah, and I mean it's definitely good laying the seeds for a foundation for a follow up.
Yes, especially the end with Ricky looking at Mother Superior and realizing what she did to his brother, Billy, who ended up dying from the fatal wound to the back. But Ricky looks at Mother Superior and with a very seriously angry face goes, naughty. And then that's it. That's it. That's the end of the film. So for my final thoughts of Silent Night, Deadly Night, protesters, you just need to shut up and just realize it's an entertainment film. Nothing more. You gotta look at it as it's not gonna stop, and meaning there's gonna be more horror films where, like Dan was mentioning before, it's gonna involve lunatics dressed as Santa Claus.
And to be honest with you, I think protesting and I'm just kind of confrontational like this anyway. But I feel like if you're protesting, if you're complaining, it means I'm doing my job right. And I feel like that's the way a lot of these filmmakers felt in the 70s and 80s. And I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but it's just one of those things. Like if you're complaining this hard about something I'm doing, it's got to be working the way I wanted it to because it's making you uncomfortable and you haven't even seen it yet.
80 is around the time where a lot of people were probably, getting hammered on the head because of the ideas they were having. Like, is it too violent? Is it too much? Nowadays, it's just remakes and reboots, and there's no more originality. And is that because people are becoming whooshies about what they see? But then again, this is like another topic for another time. But really, the way when I've seen horror films nowadays, even in theaters, it seems like audiences go there and expect to be scared. They don't even look for a story. They just expect they want to be scared. That's all they're looking for. So they're looking for the jump scares. They don't care about the story anymore. So I guess in this case now, I really don't think Silent Night, Deadly Night would work either this year. It would made
no, and it wouldn't work for the same reasons that for the same reasons that the remake of Black Christmas didn't work, and that a remake of Black Christmas today wouldn't work, and that's because largely the major studios and distributors, they want to go with a time-tested formula. They want to go with the built-in fan base and the name recognition. But they also want to create a product that's not necessarily family friendly, but one that they can get away with showing to teenagers as well as 20 and 30 somethings that are going to, be predominantly the demographic they're aiming at for these films. That's the wallet they want to get into. And so the actual story and art behind whatever film they're remaking is going to be lost because it's a cash grab.
I did hear you had a funny pun, Paul, A hammer to the head. Was that a reference to the kill scene in the movie?
Hammer to the head. I'm trying to think. Did I even say that? I don't even remember.
He said hammer to the head. I was like, wait a second. That's a cool pun because that's how one of the
Yeah,
characters died.
I guess we could say that was a pun. I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
just roll with it. Go with it, man.
yeah.
Go with it. Go with
That
it.
was such a pun. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going with. Yeah, no. So I guess Ken, we'll get you back to your thoughts a little bit. Dan. Oh, by the way, Dan. So in your final conclusion of Silent Night, Deadly Night, because I know you're probably tired and want to get the hell done. But what is your final thoughts about Silent Night, Deadly Night?
I mean, it's definitely one. Let's be honest. I confused it with Christmas Evil. There's some similarities in the overall story. It's definitely one I'm adding to my playlist, and I'll be going back tonight. Well, not tonight, but I'll be going back soon to rewatch it before we get to Christmas, just to at this point, just to see how it stacks up with my memory of it. Which, granted, memory's not too great on it at the moment, but again, we'll give it all a try and see. But I think Silent Night, Deadly Night, I think Black Christmas, I think the originals are definitely worth a watch for horror fans. They're definitely worth a watch for people that are involved in filmmaking and cinematography, and they'll be entertaining enough, just as bizarre kind of Christmas alternatives that are still themed for the holidays without being, without actually being necessarily Christmas movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Die Hard. Die Hard is a good Christmas movie.
Yes, it is. Die Hard is, well, I've already watched it once so far this season, and I'll no doubt watch it again later. So
Nice.
But I think I think it all boils down to is it's worth a watch. It's worth a consideration. And even for that much, I'd say to anybody, watch the original Black Christmas, watch the 2006 remake, and draw your own conclusions from what you find there.
Right. Remove the acting because we all know how campy the acting was back in the 70s. But
oh yeah.
But good point. Silent Night, Deadly Night has great cinematography. I've seen one scene that the store owner walks in through the door and you see the camera is an overhead shot. It's like, wow, that gives you the perspective of the whole room. I wasn't expecting that. And other kill scenes here and there was like, okay, yeah, when the guy was getting killed, strangled by the Christmas lights, you see his feet dangling, but also you see the wide angle, which to the far corner you see the woman cowering in fear. So it's like, okay, that filmmakers don't really, audiences don't really pay attention to, and the filmmakers do make a good job of that.
Show you the entire room, showing like the fear around what's happening. Is that what you're getting at, Ken? Where could people find your Dano of the Dead if people wanted to catch up with what you are doing?
Currently, with the way I'm swapping out between WordPress and Wix, the easiest way would be to find me on Twitter and Instagram at DOTDblog. Also, I'm the head writer over at 52weeksofhorror.com. And so you can find a lot of links to my personal work there, as well as a lot of articles and horror reviews that I do.
Yeah, and if you do plan on dropping out, it was nice having you here.
Hey, I appreciate you having me.
It's always a pleasure, and we'll hopefully see you next Saturday to talk about A Christmas Horror Story and Krampus.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, you, sir, have a great night, and whenever you decide to leave, too. So.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, it's been great. It's good talking to you again, Ken. Good talking to you, Paul.
Thank you. And
All right, take care.
Take care, guys.
Take care. So Ken, what I was trying to ask you too is, when you were talking about the wide angle of, watching the girl cower away to the corner, is like, do you feel like most horror films they don't necessarily do that anymore because they don't want to show the fear in the room, or like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to go about that. But you're right. I mean, most films don't show us the real room. Like, they don't show us the whole room of how everybody is being scared when there's the murder being placed right before them.
Right. What you normally see is the two-camera edit shot in which the killer is doing his dastardly deed, and then they'll cut over to whoever else is in the room, and then they'll cut to the victim. And if the victim, in this case, he's being strangled, they cut to his feet. A lot of editing to do to showcase that kill scene. But when I saw Silent Night, Deadly Night, and how the woman, she was in the corner, they just showed just enough of her. I think she was in the corner there. And I'm going by my recollection. And the guy's on the other side strangling the victim. They should do that because, and they should enhance it. Let's say the person is scared, and then they'll pick up something and hit the killer. Make it look real, so that way we can all say, oh, wow, look, there's actually a scene going here. Once you start doing so much editing, it feels too generic.
That's true. And, I mean, I don't know if it's because the lady at the time was pretty much trying to get forced upon by the guy that is now getting strangled by Billy with Christmas lights. I don't know if that was still in the process of her mind as Billy is choking her, even though we all know Billy liked her. So, I mean, I don't know if it was the way of her looking at Billy saying, like, oh, he saved me from this guy who trying to force himself on me. But then it's just like, oh my God, he's actually killing him. Maybe it just went over her head. Maybe because of those two dramatic moments all at once just exploded her mind. I mean, I don't know. But then, Ken, you do have that one scene, though, with the final lady in the store where Billy is chasing her in the back room, and the lady tricks Billy by piling up some boxes to make it look like she's standing there, and Billy thinks it's her. So when he goes to swing the fire axe, she actually comes out from behind boxes and pushes Billy to the ground to grab the axe to go use it on the door in the store.
And then that's when he goes Rambo and shoots her with the arrow.
That's right. That's right. So
that one felt too. In terms of kill scenes, that one was so impersonal. When you're crafting a serial killer, there's also a whole psychology that goes with slasher films. Why is the killer killing with a knife? In psychology terms, when a murder is committed with a knife, and the number of times that knife is used on the victim, it describes a crime of passion and emotion. So at that scene, when he shot the lady with the arrow, it's like, okay, wait a second. You just kill everybody with a hammer and hands on, and you're doing her in with an arrow, really?
So the other two topics that we kind of cut a little bit out, but which is I mentioned a scene that where the protesters, the protesters must have really, where the film really got underneath their skin, and that is the part where, after Billy breaks into the house with the older sister or babysitter, whatever the hell she is, we're trying to get it on with the guy, but she heard the cat wanting to come in, so she went topless to open the frickin' door, which I mentioned Until Dawn with Dan, and because it reminded me of the game Until Dawn, where, in this case, she opened up the door topless to bring the cat in right before Billy went all Rambo again, or Jason to, knock the door down. So it reminded me of Until Dawn, because at that one specific scene in the game where Mike is trying to get in Ashley's pants, and depending on your choices, you can get Ashley down to either bra and panties, or she can be fully clothed, or maybe just have the jacket off if you're even that lucky. But but and that's a cool thing too about horror too, is maybe, did Until Dawn get that scene from something like that, where it's just like, oh, why didn't we think of this or something? And it's just like, but of course with a video game we gotta have clothes on, yada yada yada. But I guess what I'm trying to get to the part is, after Billy impaled the lady with the deer antlers and then throws the guy
cool.
out of the window, then you see the little girl wake up, and in her eyes, she sees Santa Claus. So then Billy goes over to her, and Billy's trying to get out of her, like, have you been nice? Are you sure you've been nice? You haven't done anything naughty? And then when the girl keeps saying, yes, I've been good, that's when Billy hands her a gift, or if you even want to call it a gift, but it was the bloody box cutter that he ended up using on the lady in the store.
Right. And all that ties into that circle, that vicious circle, and passing the baton to the next killer.
That's right.
For the film, I would say Silent Night, Deadly Night was ahead of its time because of the controversy behind it. And now we see, instead of the serial killers with Santa Claus, now we see a lot of Krampus movies popping up. And they all seem just as generic as back in the day when they had all these Santa Claus serial killers. So it's a phase, and until they find something different, please, no serial killer snowmen. That's just corny. But
we already
something
got
different.
Snowman, though. Jack Frost.
I know. Don't remind me. Oh my gosh. That is no. I draw the line somewhere, and that's it right there.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
they need to come up with a different formula, though. As I said, I mentioned Good Tidings is the same formula. Good Tidings was good. Don't get me wrong. Just like these 70s movies were good too. The practical effects and the angles, but having the guy or the guys, there's mental patients. But the thing I like about Silent Night, Deadly Night is that they took the time to craft the character. At least they did that with his parents getting killed and the mother at the orphanage. At least there's a basis from what he's doing.
No, that's true. That's true.
Because come to think of it, there is no basis for there's no motivation for Jason, and there's no motivation for Myers. I mean, we only know just one sentence could describe their motivation. But for this guy, Billy, it's like a series of things that compounded him to act this way.
Well, it was from between watching his parents get murdered by a guy dressed in Santa Claus to the abuse, as we were talking about earlier, where Mother Superior probably put it in his brain that everybody needs to be punished, whoever is naughty. And
right.
And
then you have the fact again that he has that girl that he liked it, and that he's also feeling suppressed sexually because remember, he was peeping through the hole when the sister was having sex with the guy, and when he finds that girl that he likes and he sees that, he flips out. So there's a lot of things that compounded this guy to flip.
Exactly. It was just it was reversed. He's no longer that kid poking through the hole anymore. Well, I guess in a way it was, but then, he acted on it like Mother Superior did, which was use the belt and punish the sister and the guy. But in this case, he just choked the guy out with Christmas lights. But I guess, Ken, real quick, for the final scene of Silent Night, Deadly Night, in your own opinion, where Billy is finally in the orphanage, and you think Billy's about to kill Mother Suspiria, what is your whole opinion on that finale scene? Like, do you think that must have drove the final straw for the protest? Along with what I was mentioning like a few minutes ago, with Billy getting that box cutter out because you think he's gonna hurt the little girl, but then only to give her the box cutter because she'd been good. Where it kind of shows that Billy knows when to not hurt somebody.
Right. I'm trying to remember that ending with the Superior.
So the ending is like they accidentally shot the Santa Claus that was originally supposed to be there for the kids, but the guy was deaf, so he didn't hear the police, so they shot him and killed him because he was deaf. So then the cops thought they had Billy, but then when they found out it was like a 92-year-old, and that's when the other sister told the cop, like, "Oh no, he was deaf. No wonder why he wouldn't have been able to hear him anyway." And then then we got the other cop that got stabbed in the chest when he was checking out the, what do I want to call it, the heating area, generator area, whatever the hell that little shed area was. And then Billy uses the little kid to get into the orphanage, and that's where you think Billy is finally going to get the revenge on Mother Superior. But Billy gets shot twice in the back, and then that's when he falls down, dies, while saying to the kids, "It is safe now. Santa Claus is gone," and then he dies. That's when Billy's younger brother, who I believe is like 10 years old at this time, after the incident with the parents, recognizes his brother somehow, which I'm trying to figure that one out, because you got to think Ricky was a little baby at the time, and
right when his parents got killed, he was still a little baby, and that was a clever play on keeping his brother quiet throughout the whole film.
Yes.
I remember that part. Yeah.
So the final scene of the movie where a sequel was coming, or could have came, which it did eventually, but it was Ricky looking at Mother Superior, and you see Ricky with this seriously angry face, and the final words out of his mouth to Mother Superior is naughty. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, how do you feel about the final scene, especially with all the protest people, to what is your final opinion about Silent Night, Deadly Night?
Well, like I said earlier in the podcast, or if it went through or not, when that movie came out, oh man, my mom didn't want me to watch that for anything. Oh, it was this sacrilege and this and this and this and that, whatever. But horror is horror. You gotta admit, horror. That's one thing. Horror is not like drama comedy. They think outside the box and take anything. And for that ending, now you refresh my memory. That ending was played out good, and in a way that you don't see that with many slasher films now. That potential setup for a sequel. And in the beginning, his brother was a baby. He was much older, and then the whole sequence of events is just on the killer. But then, oh, okay, wait, we have somebody else here who's gonna take over as Santa Claus. But it all boils down to good versus evil in that piece of segment right there.
Yes,
that's what it boils down to, good versus evil. And the if you want to break it down psychologically, who's the good person, who's the bad person? Is Billy bad for his actions, or was he thinking that he was doing a good thing? And of course, the Mother Superior, was she thinking that she was doing something good by abusing the children, or doing the work of God? or was she really a nasty bitch? It's up to the jaw of the conclusion of the audience, and that's what people don't like. People don't want to debate. People want spoon-fed stories, and that's what we have now. That's the problem now.
And you're right. I mean, people don't want to discuss anything, especially when it becomes religion stuff. If you bring in Christianity for anything really, and if you fuck around with that thing and nobody likes it, or if you're trying to put it in a way of the film is doing the devil's work or whatever, oh my God. Like, you're right though. I mean, is Billy really doing what he thinks is right because of what Mother Superior did, which is all the beatings, especially from what Billy witnessed, like with the peephole, seeing the sister having sex, to Mother Superior beating him with a belt. And then later on, which was Billy got told that he could come outside to play by the other sister, but because it wasn't Mother Superior telling him to go out and play, he still got punished. And even though Mother Superior came down and even asked Billy, "What do you know what you saw?" And then because Billy didn't really quite understand what was going on, or maybe he did, we really don't know. I mean, I would still say no. He did not know what was going on. Maybe it got in. I mean, this is 10 years. I mean, who knows how many more beatings Billy got? But if it got to the point where Billy got it in his head that everybody who is naughty needs to be punished, then it's definitely Mother Superior thinking she can pretty much break anybody's problem by beating them and teaching them that this is the right way, or even though it's not the right way.
Right. And I mentioned earlier that this film really was over dramatic in that giving that mother such abusive authority. But this is really in the 70s, 60s, 50s, there was no human rights. And wow, so many stories that have come out of these orphanages that are now closed, thank goodness, or hospitals, the abuses that went through. Wow, it's traumatic. But now we can't use that. If this movie were to be remade, we can't use it because it doesn't apply. It's a totally different standing. But if they were to remake this, I would hope they make it gritty, just like the reboot for The Hills Have Eyes. I mean, you could shoot it frame by frame, but if you give it that extra level of violence and grittiness, yeah, I think this would make a comeback. And this movie came out in 84? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be. It has to be done very gritty because there's so many underlying psychological things that is presented here. And it's 1984, an old movie with cheesy dialogue and cheesy acting, but you could really break this down and psychoanalyze it.
Oh man, that would be a fun thing to do someday. But yeah, so Ken, real quick, so what is your final opinion on Silent Night, Deadly Night?
Well, I would say for Silent Night, Deadly Night, and pretty much every other slasher film from the 70s, it may sound campy, but it's definitely worth a look, and especially if you want to build your resume and know what the hell you're talking about. You can't bring up Paranormal Activity as a good source of material to compare horror when you haven't seen the older stuff. You gotta watch the old stuff. There's good shit there. Bad shit too, but good shit. And yeah, always it's important to go to those eras. And for social media, DK Mag is across all platforms. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest at DK Mag, and our website is DECAYMAG.com. Once again, that's DK Mag, not DK Magazine or DK or the letter or the letters DK. DK Mag.
I like that. The letter DK. What? Letter DK. What?
Yeah, I sometimes I'll go to these events and it says DK Mag and they write the letter D and K. It says, no, wait, we're not the fashion label Donna Karen.
Oh, now I get it. Okay, now I get it. Okay, I was like, what? What the hell? What am I missing with this? But yeah, no, I mean, Silent Night, Deadly Night, I mean, almost got banned. Like I was trying to say earlier, I was trying to see if I could maybe find anything else about it, and I couldn't, unfortunately. So maybe there's something out there about how it almost got banned, but I couldn't find it in time. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those movies where you just need to grow a pair and just look at it as an entertainment thing. Don't look at it as it's a religious film, I guess, because I guess, and it's not. Yes, it may seem like it's child abuse, but if you really think about it, it's a way of saying this is how children can get traumatized.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
And I think that's about it for now. Unfortunately, it's like 1:45 in the morning, and I gotta be to work in like 4 hours. So amazing.
Oh wow! Hey, yeah, you should be in bed.
Exactly. So on that note, Ken, thank you for sticking around for this final bit. I didn't want to make it feel like an asshole to just have you come in and that was the end of the show. So I figured I'd get your 2 cents in about some of the stuff too. Just help.
Wow. Like I said, today has been technical issues, so this just the icing on the cake. And I bet you tomorrow everything's gonna be working fine. Oh, brother. Technology.
That's how it works.
Yeah. And the thing is, I can't drink any alcohol because I'm still on medications for this lung problem here, and I was like, I need a drink.
Man, I just told Stacy and Dan before I started this for 10 o'clock, I had a freaking beer and I had coffee because I was just like, oh God.
Oh wow, that's a combo right there. Beer and coffee. That's
yeah. Nice.
Well, thank you for hosting, and definitely look forward to the next one. Better connection and better conversation.
Yes, for those still listening, I hope. So stick around to make sure you follow us or DK. One of us will have this episode up, but we will also be coming back or joining up again with Dan, possibly Stacy and Ken again, because, you know, it's a roundtable. It's a good way to hear other people's opinion, especially for next week's roundtable, which is A Christmas Horror Story and Krampus. So if you're into those two movies, stick around. And by the way, I better clarify again, the Krampus movie that I'm specifically talking about is the 2015. Michael. Ken, you might be able to help me out better if I don't pronounce it right. But Michael Dougherty's film of Krampus.
Yes, that's the one, Michael Dougherty. Yeah.
Okay. So, we're going to be talking about those movies and why those movies are either good or bad, depending on how people look at them. And you might have gotten a taste already of what to expect out of A Christmas Horror Story, anyways, with Dan from Dano of the Dead. But we're going to be more talking in depth of what is actually going on besides Santa Claus fighting Krampus. And the twist of that. We're going to be also talking about the other story that is happening and the weird twist and turn. And then we're going to be focusing at the almighty God of all Krampus films, which is probably the best Krampus film, period. Beside the other crap that is out there, especially Mother Krampus. Oh my God. We're not gonna go there, but this one feels like this is well done. This could happen if you really think about it. If the legends were true of what happened with Michael Dougherty's version, and we're gonna talk about that more next week. And until then, thank you so much, Ken from DK Mag, for joining. And I'm Paul Dolsky. And as always, stay
Stay scary.